Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 29.
So let's set the stage and get a feel for the world we are entering. We find ourselves in Jinling.
Which is the ancient name for Nanjing, right?
Exactly. And this is a city with a massive amount of history. It's a place where wealth, culture, and extreme poverty often rub shoulders in very close quarters. And our entry point into this ancient metropolis is a guy named Gu.
Ah, Gu.
Yeah, so Gu is 25 years old, he's unmarried, and he is, to put it mildly, catastrophically poor.
He is living at the absolute edge of economic survival. But the situation is nuanced, because Gu is not a common laborer.
Right, he's an artist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is highly talented in painting and calligraphy. In the context of his era, he possesses the skills of a scholar or an artisan, essentially making him a struggling freelance creative.
A gig worker in ancient China, basically.
Pretty much. And the reason he hasn't moved to a more prosperous province or taken a more lucrative but demanding position elsewhere is deeply tied to the foundational cultural concept of filial piety.
Because he has an elderly mother.
Right. In this societal structure, leaving her side to seek his own fortune would be considered a severe moral failure. So he stays, he supports the two of them day by day, grinding out a living by selling his art.
Just taking whatever minor commissions he can secure in Jinling, just to keep rice in their bowls. It's a vibe that I think resonates surprisingly well today.
Oh, definitely.
You have the struggling creative living at home, actively prioritizing elder care over his own upward mobility. It grounds the narrative immediately. You instinctively root for Goki. He is trying his best in a system that is not designed to help him.
He really is. But we have to factor in his age. He is 25.
Which is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. In this specific historical and cultural context, being an unmarried 25-year-old man means he is facing an immense, crushing wave of societal pressure to marry and produce an heir.
But he literally cannot afford the bride price, or the upkeep of a wife for that matter.
Right, the societal anxiety surrounding his bachelorhood is palpable. His marital status is described as still empty.
Ouch. Still empty.
It's harsh. It's a phrasing that suggests a void that actively needs to be filled rather than just a neutral state of being, and the pressure is mounting, primarily emanating from his mother.
Because she's getting older, her health is fragile.
Yeah, and she is deeply existentially worried about the family line continuing. In classical Chinese culture, the failure to produce a male heir to perform ancestral rites is, it's one of the gravest unfilial acts imaginable.
So this is the bedrock of Gu's daily reality.
Yeah.
It's this suffocating blend of poverty, crushing filial duty, and the looming anxiety of a fundamental societal expectation that he simply cannot afford to meet.
It's a pressure cooker.
It really is. So Gu and his mom are trapped in this quiet, difficult holding pattern, and then the dynamics of their immediate neighborhood shift. Right across the street from Gu's home, there's been an empty house, and suddenly it gets rented out.
The new arrivals are highly unusual, especially given the social realities of the era. The tenants who move in are a deaf old woman and a striking young girl.
Who is about 18 or 19 years old.
Right.
And what stands out immediately when you look at the source material is the sheer, terrifying vulnerability of their situation.
Yeah.
There are no men in this household. Zero.
None.
No father, no brothers, no uncles, which, in this specific setting, is a massive flashing red flag for their physical safety and their economic viability.
It is a state of absolute precariousness. They have no patriarchal shield in a highly patriarchal society. We are told they frequently have no overnight food.
They are living a precarious hand-to-mouth existence.
Surviving entirely on the meager income generated by the young girl's needlework. She is the sole breadwinner. She's using her 10 fingers to keep herself and her profoundly disabled mother from starving to death in a strange city.
It's just an impossible situation. The lack of a male protector means they have no institutional protection and no social capital. They're entirely exposed to the elements, both natural and human.
Very true.
So Go's first real direct encounter with this girl is incredibly mundane on paper, but it completely establishes her aura for the rest of the narrative. He comes home one day, maybe he was out trying to sell a painting, and he sees her walking out of his mother's room.
Just crossing paths.
Yeah, she had crossed the street to borrow a ruler and some scissors. Just basic, everyday sewing supplies so she can continue her grueling work. But the physical description we get of her in that moment is wild.
Oh, it really is.
It notes that she is beautiful beyond compare, but her demeanor is intensely intimidating. She doesn't shy away from Gu. She doesn't act demure or overly modest.
which is exactly what society would demand of a young, unmarried woman in the presence of a strange man.
Right. Instead, she is fiercely, unbreakably composed.
The specific phrasing used to describe her is crucial. It notes that she did not much avoid him, but her manner was awe-inspiring.
Awe-inspiring.
Yes. In a culture that expects young, vulnerable women to lower their eyes, to shrink away, to make themselves small and invisible to passing men, she does the exact opposite.
She holds her ground.
Her beauty is undeniable, but it is entirely guarded by a wall of absolute severity. It is not an invitation, it is a barricade.
And naturally, Gu's mom looks at this entirely new dynamic through the highly pragmatic lens of a desperate mother. She sees a beautiful girl who is clearly capable of immense hard work. So the mom goes over to visit the neighbors to scope them out.
As moms do.
As moms do. And she makes a very astute observation. She notes that despite their current starvation-level poverty, they don't carry themselves like people who have been historically poor.
They don't have the mannerisms of the generational underclass.
Right. They project this air of faded nobility. So the wheels in Gu's mom's head start turning, and she gets an idea.
A deeply strategic, survival-oriented idea. She formally proposes that the two households begin sharing meals.
Man, on the surface, if you don't understand the cultural subtext, this sounds like simple neighborly charity, like
Sure.
we are poor, you are poor, let's pool our meager resources and survive together.
But it is, in reality, a thinly veiled, highly calculated matchmaking attempt.
Oh, completely.
Gu's mother sees a young woman who is currently desperate but possesses incredible resilience and beauty. The mother's ultimate goal is to slowly fold this girl into their family structure, essentially securing a highly capable wife for Gu and a dedicated caretaker for herself in her old age.
It is entirely transactional, but we have to remember that is how survival worked. She is running a mental calculation. If we feed her and keep her mother alive, obligation will eventually force her to marry my son.
Exactly.
But the reaction they get to this proposal is fascinating. The deaf old woman seems quite open to the idea of sharing meals.
Yeah.
I mean, she is practical, she is hungry,
Yeah.
but the young girl,
She remains completely silent and visibly deeply displeased.
she shoots the entire proposal down without uttering a single syllable, just radiating sheer displeasure.
And Gu's mother retreats to her own house and is actually quite offended by the rejection. She assumes the girl is looking down on them due to some misplaced sense of superiority.
She actually complains to Gu, asking, could it be that she despises our poverty?
Which is deeply ironic, considering the girl is arguably in a much more desperate financial state than they are.
Right, but Gu, possessing the sensitive, perceptive eye of an artist, has a slightly more nuanced read on what just happened. He drops this incredible poetic observation about her. He says she is beautiful as peach and plum, but cold as frost and snow.
That imagery is so striking.
Think about that for a second. Beautiful as peach and plum, but cold as frost and snow. He recognizes her as a strange or extraordinary person. What does this frost and snow element imply about her character right out of the gate?
The contradiction is what makes it brilliant. Peach and plum are classic literary symbols of spring. They imply youth, vitality, fertility, and inherently vulnerability.
Okay, yeah.
But frost and snow are the essence of winter: rigidity, deadliness, self-preservation, and unyielding boundaries. Gu is sensing that her coldness is not mere snobbery or arrogance. It is an armor forged from necessity.
It's survival.
When you objectively look at her situation, an 18-year-old girl burdened with a disabled mother, possessing zero financial resources, lacking any male protector, and living in an unfamiliar, bustling city that frost and snow demeanor is the literal only thing keeping predators at bay.
It is a psychological fortress designed to keep the world out.
Exactly.
Let me push back on that interpretation just a little, though.
Sure.
Is it entirely just a survival mechanism, or is there a genuine element of aristocratic arrogance there? Because Gan's mom is offering her a lifeline when they are literally starving.
Right.
To be visibly, silently displeased by the offer of shared meals? I mean, it takes a staggering level of pride to choose starvation over accepting a social obligation that you don't want. Most people in survival mode would take the food and deal with the social fallout later.
That is an excellent point, and it cuts to the absolute core of her identity. It is pride, certainly, but it is not the petty arrogance of someone who thinks they're better than their neighbors. It is a highly calculated, almost mathematical understanding of debt. In this specific cultural framework, the concept of bao, or reciprocity, is paramount.
Ah, right. Reciprocity.
Accepting a meal, especially in a context heavily laden with matchmaking undertones, creates a massive moral and social debt. She is displeased because she instantly recognizes the trap.
He sees right through it.
She knows Gu's mother isn't merely offering a bowl of rice out of the goodness of her heart. She is offering a down payment on the girl's entire future as a subjugated daughter-in-law.
Wow. So by remaining cold as frost, she is violently, preemptively rejecting the social contract before the ink can even be drawn.
Precisely. She fundamentally refuses to owe anyone her agency or her life.
She is starving, her mother is starving, but she is carefully reading the invisible fine print on a bowl of rice. That is the level of discipline most people cannot even fathom. And it perfectly sets the baseline for the absolute chaos that is about to crash into Gu's very quiet, structured life. Because just as Gu is quietly obsessing over this unapproachable ice queen across the street, the narrative takes a massive, unexpected swerve. We move away from the domestic drama.
The narrative abruptly pivots from a grounded exploration of poverty and societal expectation into something entirely different, brought on by the arrival of a new, highly disruptive character.
Gu is sitting in his studio one day, working on his calligraphy or painting, and this youth comes to visit.
A very specific type of youth.
Right, we are given a description of a young man who is highly attractive, exceptionally beautiful, but possesses a demeanor that is slightly frivolous, perhaps a bit flirtatious or unserious. He claims to be from a neighboring village and says he wants to purchase some of Gu's paintings.
It begins as a simple commercial transaction, but it does not stay that way. The youth starts returning every few days. They spend time together.
The dynamic between the struggling artist and the beautiful patron becomes very relaxed, very intimate.
And then the narrative introduces a plot point that often surprises modern readers with its absolute, unflinching casualness.
It is incredibly casual. It just states that they begin joking around, the atmosphere gets familiar, and then Gukut embraces him.
Just like that.
The youth doesn't really offer much resistance, and from that moment, they begin an illicit, highly affectionate, intimate relationship. They become lovers.
There is no agonizing internal monologue, no grand dramatic buildup.
It is just stated, as a matter of fact, Gukut, the lonely, pressured artist, now has a beautiful boy toy from the next village making regular house calls.
What is truly remarkable for anyone analyzing the text is the complete lack of moral judgment from the narrator regarding the same-sex nature of the affair.
Which is really interesting.
It is. In the context of the Ming and Qing dynasties, while such relationships existed firmly outside the orthodox, Confucian framework of marriage and procreation, which was strictly for producing heirs, the text presents Gu's actions simply as a lonely man finding an outlet for his desires and his isolation, since he cannot afford a traditional wife.
So it's not the relationship itself that's the issue.
No, however, while the act isn't condemned, the nature of the youth is what signals immense danger. He is described as frivolous or flippant.
That undisciplined vibe again.
Exactly. In a philosophical sense, he represents an undisciplined, chaotic, unregulated energy that Gu is willingly inviting into his very structured, dutiful, filial life.
Gu is playing with absolute fire. He just hasn't realized he's holding a match yet. So this incredibly toxic triangle starts forming. One day, the youth is lounging at Gu's place, and he happens to glance out the window or out the door, and he sees the neighbor girl walking by.
The peach and the plum.
Right. Naturally, he is instantly struck by her appearance. Because beneath the frost, she is still the peach and the plum. He watches her pass, turns to Gu, and asks, "Who is that?"
And Gu explains that she is the impoverished neighbor.
And the youth's reaction is deeply telling. He asks, essentially, if she is so stunningly beautiful, why is her demeanor so terrifying?
The youth, despite his frivolity, immediately picks up on the frost and snow. He intuitively senses the danger radiating from her.
But he hasn't respected.
Because his nature is fundamentally arrogant and undisciplined, he views her severity as a challenge to his own charm rather than a genuine warning to back off. This interaction is also where we first see the girl's almost supernatural perception come into play.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't just look intimidating to passing strangers. She is actively, constantly monitoring everything in her environment with a hypervigilance that borders on the superhuman.
She's playing chess while they are playing checkers. Because shortly after the youth spots her, the girl does something highly out of character. She actively approaches Gu.
Remember, she normally barely acknowledges his existence.
But she tracks him down specifically to deliver a chilling warning. She tells Go that his new companion has been acting disrespectfully toward her, maybe staring at her too long, perhaps making inappropriate gestures when he thinks Gu isn't looking.
She doesn't miss a thing.
And she gives Gu a message to pass along to his lover. She states, and I want to emphasize the sheer coldness here, if he does it again, he will die.
That is a critical distinction to make. It is not a threat.
It's not.
A threat implies an emotional desire to intimidate. What she delivers is a statement of absolute immutable fact. The phrasing translates roughly to, it is that he does not wish to live anymore.
She is establishing a lethal, non-negotiable boundary.
And it is equally important to notice how she handles this. She doesn't confront the youth directly.
Right, she goes to Gu.
She tells Gu to deliver the message. In the social architecture of the time, she is giving Gu a final opportunity to manage his own household, to assert control, and to rein in the chaotic, disrespectful element he brought into their shared space.
But Gu is just a massive pushover. He is a gentle artist, not an enforcer. He goes to the youth that evening and attempts to pass on the warning. He tries to be serious, saying, "You really need to be careful around her. She's absolutely not someone you can afford to offend."
And the youth's response.
The youth just laughs in his face. He mocks Gu. He turns the situation around and attacks Gu's masculinity and his ego. He sneers, "If she is so cold and untouchable, how come you get to sleep with her?"
He openly accuses Gu of having a secret affair with the terrifying neighbor.
And just wanting to keep her all to himself.
The youth's arrogance entirely blinds him to the reality of his situation. Gu tries to defend his own honor, frantically swearing that absolutely nothing untoward is going on with the neighbor girl.
But the youth deploys a classic manipulative trap. He counters with, "If nothing is going on between you two, then why did she pull you aside to say those things to you?"
It's toxic.
And then the youth drops a devastating, ruinous threat. He tells Gu to stop faking this innocent routine, or else the youth will go into the town and spread vicious rumors about Gu and the neighbor girl having an illicit affair.
This is the definition of a toxic love triangle.
Think about the stakes for Gu right now. It is like a modern, manipulative relationship drama, crashing headfirst into a supernatural thriller. On one flank, Gu has this incredibly manipulative, blackmailing lover who is threatening to completely destroy his reputation and the reputation of the vulnerable women across the street.
In this society, a ruined reputation means absolute social and economic death.
Exactly. On the other flank, he has a neighbor who is radiating pure, unapologetic, lethal intent. Gu is paralyzed. He is caught between a dangerous, chaotic monster of a boyfriend and an even more dangerous, disciplined neighbor.
And the tragic irony is that Gu has absolutely no comprehension of how physically dangerous either of them truly is.
He is entirely out of his depth.
Completely unable to navigate the forces he has stumbled between. He is angry at the youth. The narrative notes his face flushes with anger, but his passivity defines him. He does not kick the youth out. He does not end the affair.
And Gu's total failure to enforce his own boundaries is exactly what forces the girl to enforce hers. Which brings us to the explosive climax of this entire standoff. The execution. One night, Go is actually sitting alone in his home. And the girl suddenly pays him a visit. And she is acting completely out of character.
The frost has melted.
She is smiling, she is engaging, she is friendly.
Yeah.
She sits down with Go, and they are sharing a quiet, seemingly intimate moment. But it's entirely a trap.
She knows exactly what the youth is like, and she knows exactly what is about to happen.
She is actively baiting the trap.
She understands the psychology of her enemy better than he understands himself.
Precisely. They are sitting there, and suddenly they hear footsteps rapidly approaching from outside. Fast, heavy, and loud. Good and the girl both jump up in apparent surprise as the doors violently burst open.
It is the youth.
He has pushed his way into the inner sanctum of the house, and he sneers at them. He says something to the effect of, "I came to watch the chaste people."
He genuinely believes he has caught them in a compromising position, and he is gloating.
He looks directly at the girl, mocking her severe reputation, and says, "Are you not going to blame people today?" He is essentially taunting her, saying, "I caught you being a hypocrite with your boyfriend. What are you going to do about it now?"
The youth has fatally miscalculated. He has crossed every conceivable boundary.
Oh, absolutely.
He has invaded her physical space. He has threatened to destroy her hard-won reputation through rumors. And now he is directly, openly mocking her to her face. And the girl's reaction is not emotional.
Not at all.
It is instantaneous, mechanical, and terrifying. We are told her eyebrows shoot up, her cheeks flush red with martial energy. She does not argue with him. She does not scream for help.
She simply acts. The text gives us this incredible cinematic sequence. She reaches into her upper garment, flips it open, and reveals a leather pouch hidden beneath her clothes.
Her hand moves with impossible speed.
And in an instant, she is holding a crystalline dagger about a foot long, and the blade is glowing.
The youth sees this weapon, instantly realizes that he has made a catastrophic, terminal mistake, and he twinks to flee.
He books it out the door into the night.
But human speed cannot outrun her. She pursues him outside. And here is where the narrative shifts fully into the realm of the wuxia, the martial arts fantasy.
She doesn't tackle him or stab him in a conventional scuffle.
No, she throws the glowing dagger into the empty night air.
The description is breathtaking. The narrative states the blade makes a sharp, ringing sound, like a bell, and it flashes like a brilliant rainbow cutting across the dark sky.
Just incredible imagery.
Put yourself in Gu's shoes, standing in the doorway watching this, a glowing crystal dagger, tracing a literal rainbow of light in the dark. And then, a heavy, sickening thud.
Something hits the dirt.
Gu, who is probably hyperventilating and completely losing his mind at this point, grabs a candle and creeps outside to see what just happened in his front yard.
The candlelight reveals the aftermath. Gu discovers the youth lying dead, but it is not the beautiful human body he was embracing days ago.
The flickering light reveals a white creature, a white fox.
And its head has been completely, cleanly severed from its body.
The frivolous, handsome, manipulative youth was actually a supernatural demon all along.
It is a total paradigm shift.
Gu is staring at a decapitated monster. The lover he was arguing with was a magical beast. And what does the girl do in the face of this supernatural revelation? Does she freak out? Does she fall to her knees and deliver a massive, breathless exposition dump about her secret life as a demon hunter?
Not even close.
She calmly walks over to the carcass, retrieves her crystal blade, wipes it clean, and slides it back into her hidden leather pouch. She looks at Gu, who is trembling, holding a candle over a dead fox. And she says, and this has to be one of the coldest lines in literature, "This monster ruined the mood. Let's wait until tomorrow night."
Unbelievable.
And she just turns around and walks back to her house.
It is a stunning, almost unbelievable display of absolute psychological dominance. If we analyze her complete lack of fear or surprise, it reveals her true, towering status in the hierarchy of this narrative.
She wasn't hiding from this fox demon.
No, she wasn't intimidated by its magic. She was merely tolerating its existence in her proximity until it had the audacity to cross her hard boundary.
In classical lore, white fox demons are powerful entities.
Oh, yes. They mimic human beauty to seduce and drain the life force of humans. She likely knew exactly what it was, or at the very least, recognized it as a predator, and she dispatched it with the effortless efficiency of someone swatting a mosquito.
She's totally unfazed.
By casually claiming the monster ruined the mood, she is actively refusing to give the creature any significance in her life. This exchange establishes her beyond any shadow of a doubt as the true alpha power in the story. Gu is merely a spectator, a passenger in his own life.
It is so incredibly dismissive. Sorry, the shape-shifting demon I just decapitated with my magic rainbow dagger really killed the vibe. Catch you on Tuesday.
Exactly.
It is brilliant.
But
But wait, if we are analyzing this timeline, we need to pause and rewind slightly. Because there is a massive, glaring question hanging over this entire bloody scene.
Yes, there is.
Why were the girl and Gu together in his room that night in the first place? Why was she suddenly smiling and sharing an intimate moment with him when she had spent months being as cold as frost?
To understand the mechanism behind that shift, we have to examine the currency of gratitude.
Okay, gratitude.
We have to look at what was quietly developing in the background while Gu was completely distracted by his chaotic affair with the fox demon.
Let's talk about Gu's mother again. We establish she is elderly, she is unwell, and she is desperately poor.
Yeah.
Well, before the monster incident ever reached its climax, the severe neighbor girl had begun acting almost exactly like a surrogate daughter-in-law to Gu's mom.
And this monumental shift didn't just happen out of nowhere.
It stems entirely from a single, tiny act of charity that the girl decided to treat as a life-altering, unbreakable debt.
You'll recall that early on, Gu's mother offered to share meals, and the girl violently rejected the offer to avoid the obligation. Well, later in the timeline, the girl's situation deteriorated. It became so incredibly dire that they had not been able to light their cooking stove in days. They were truly, physically starving.
Gu's mother heard about this desperate situation and sent Gu across the street with a very meager amount of rice. Just a small bucket, nothing lavish.
And the girl accepted the bucket, but crucially, she did not say thank you.
To a modern observer, that seems incredibly rude.
It does. But in her highly structured mind, that small bucket of rice was the only thing that saved her disabled mother's life. And for a person operating on her level of discipline, a debt of life cannot be repaid with cheap words. It must be repaid in full with action.
She didn't say thanks because thanks means nothing when you owe someone your survival. So she started balancing the ledger.
She started coming over to Gu's house every single day.
She voluntarily took over the endless sewing and mending. She helped with the exhausting daily chores. When she managed to scrape together any extra food from her own grueling labor, she brought it over and shared it with Gu's mom.
She basically manifested into the exact dedicated wife that Gu's mom had always dreamed of securing for her son, just without any of the legal or romantic entanglements of an actual marriage.
And her devotion is put to the ultimate, most visceral test when Gu's mother falls violently ill. The mother develops a horrific, severely painful ulcer.
And the text specifies it is located in a very private, sensitive area of her body.
It is an agonizing affliction. The elderly woman is crying out in pain day and night, unable to care for herself. And the neighbor girl steps up in a way that is hard to comprehend.
The details provided here are purposefully visceral.
The girl goes to the mother's bedside, and 3 to 4 times every single day she manually cleans the festering wound.
She washes away the infection, she applies the medicinal ointments.
And the narrative makes a very specific point to highlight that the girl did not show even a microscopic hint of disgust at the filth, the bodily fluids, or the smell.
This is a profoundly revealing moment about her internal state. Caretaking of this extreme, intimate nature, cleaning a festering ulcer on an elderly person's private parts, is incredibly difficult and emotionally taxing for anyone, even for devoted, blood-related children.
Oh, for sure.
For an unrelated neighbor girl to perform this grotesque task multiple times a day without once flinching or tuning away shows a level of detachment from her own ego and physical comfort that borders on the superhuman.
She has entirely subordinated her own natural human aversions to her overwhelming sense of duty.
Gu's mother is so moved, so overwhelmed by this unprecedented care that she weeps and cries out, "How could I ever get a daughter-in-law like you to care for me until I die?"
The mother is explicitly, verbally acknowledging that the girl is performing the sacred duties of the most devoted family member.
Gid is completely amazed by this, too. He walks in, sees this beautiful, terrifying woman tenderly cleaning his mother's wounds, and he literally drops to his knees. He bows deeply to the girl to express his profound gratitude.
And her response is just so classic to her character. She looks at him and says, "You respect my mother. I do not thank you. Why should you thank me?"
It is all a massive cosmic ledger to her. The accounts are perfectly balanced. You kept my mother alive. I keep your mother alive.
But here is where her incredibly unorthodox, rigid boundaries come into sharp focus.
Yes, because despite this incredible, intimate devotion to his mother's survival, she still vehemently, aggressively refuses to marry Gu.
She is flawlessly playing the role of a traditional wife in terms of sheer domestic labor and elder care, but she utterly rejects the social, legal, and spiritual contract of actually being a wife.
And Gugu, who is a lonely 25-year-old guy whose mom is constantly talking about needing a grandson, finally shoots his shot.
He propositions her. He asks to be with her romantically, physically.
And to his shock, she actually says yes. She accepts his advance.
But she immediately lays down a bizarrely strict, non-negotiable rule. She agrees to sleep with him, but she tells him clearly, this can happen once, but not twice.
Once, but not twice. We must dissect this specific moral code because it is the absolute skeleton key to understanding her entire character. She explicitly tells Gu to his face, "You are poor, but am I rich? I am with you tonight exactly because I pity your poverty."
I have to stop you right there because that line is just incredible. I am with you tonight exactly because I pity your poverty. It is arguably the most anti-romantic thing a person could possibly say.
It strips away all illusion of love or passion.
It is purely, coldly transactional.
It is entirely, ruthlessly pragmatic. What she is doing here is highly sophisticated. She is completely separating romantic love, legal marital obligation, and transactional gratitude into 3 distinct categories.
She refuses to be bound by a marital contract.
Because, as we will soon learn, her life and her future do not belong to her. They belong to a much darker, much more violent mission. She cannot be tethered to a husband.
But she freely, willingly gives her body and her reproductive labor to repay a debt of kindness.
In her worldview, she is acting as a surrogate for the universe, violently balancing the scales of karma. Gu's family gave her life in the form of a bucket of rice. She will give them life in return.
So that explains why she says yes. But why the hyper-specific rule? Why is she so insistent on maintaining total, absolute control over their encounters? Why the once but not twice stipulation? If she has decided to repay a debt physically, why put a strict numeric limit of 1 on it?
Because of absolute biological pragmatism. This is the moment where her character transcends being merely honorable and becomes almost terrifyingly calculating.
Terrifyingly calculate.
She only intended to sleep with him exactly enough times to give him a male heir. That was the ultimate, final repayment to his mother, providing the grandson they so desperately craved, so the Gu family line would not be extinguished.
Wait, are you saying she was actively calculating her ovulation cycle to pay off a grocery bill?
Essentially, yes. She gambled on getting pregnant on the very first attempt. She wanted to be in and out, transaction completed. But the narrative reveals that a few weeks later, her period arrived. The text refers to it as the monthly water.
The first biological attempt failed.
So what does this woman of iron discipline do? She breaks her own unbreakable rule. She initiates contact, goes back to Gu, and sleeps with him exactly 1 more time, solely to complete this biological task.
And when she successfully conceives,
She cuts him off completely. She never touches him again.
that is just wow. It's like she's a Black Ops operative executing a very specific, highly classified drop. Mission objective, provide heir. Attempt 1, failed. Attempt 2, initiated.
It is so entirely devoid of typical human romance, yet if you look at it from a certain angle, it is the ultimate profound act of sacrifice for a family she technically owes absolutely nothing to.
She's completely commodified her own reproductive system enduring 9 months of pregnancy to pay off a bucket of rice and some baseline human kindness.
And this incredible, staggering level of psychological discipline perfectly sets the stage for the narrative's final act. Because while she is quietly executing this biological repayment plan in the background, time is inevitably passing.
Right. Months go by, the seasons change, and then a massive tragedy strikes the girl. Her deaf mother, the disabled woman she has been fiercely protecting and literally starving herself for, passes away.
Gu, showing that he is genuinely a decent, caring guy despite his passivity and his flaws, steps up immediately.
He helps the girl bury her mother. He spends what little money he has to ensure the old woman gets a proper, respectful funeral.
With her mother gone, one of the girl's 2 massive earthly anchors has been lifted. You might expect her to lean on Dune now to seek comfort in the father of her future child.
But instead, she does the exact opposite. She isolates herself completely.
Gu tries desperately to visit her. He climbs over the dividing wall. He knocks on her window. He has clearly become deeply emotionally attached to her by this point, but she ignores his existence entirely.
The text describes her room as empty and silent. She is systematically withdrawing from the human world.
But she is harboring a massive secret. Eventually, after months of violently dodging his advances, she finally unlocks the door and lets Go in.
When he sees her, she looks disheveled. Her clothes are loose, her hair is a mess, which is a shocking visual contrast to her usual, perfectly composed frost and snow appearance.
And she reveals exactly why she has been hiding from him. She's 8 months pregnant.
She has spent nearly a year carrying Gu's child in absolute self-imposed solitary confinement. And when she reveals this, she gives him very specific, very strange logistical instructions.
She tells Gu that he must have his mother secretly find a wet nurse, and they must publicly pretend that the Gu family is adopting an orphan child from outside the city.
She absolutely insists that they must completely, permanently erase her biological connection to the baby.
She tells him, I can give birth to him for you, but I cannot raise him for you. She wants no paper trail, no neighborhood gossip, no emotional connection whatsoever.
When the time comes, she gives birth in total agonizing secrecy to a baby boy. The text specifically notes the baby has a broad forehead, which in classical physiognomy is a definitive sign of future intelligence, wealth, and success.
And in the dead of night, like a ghost, she just hands the newborn baby over to Gu's mother.
We really need to pause and think about the immense psychological weight of that specific moment. She has just given birth. The hormonal, physical, and emotional reality of labor and delivery is overwhelming.
Yet, she hands the infant over in the dark, severing the maternal bond instantaneously without hesitation, Because in her mind, the child was never hers to keep. The child was merely a high-value currency used to pay off a familial debt.
And Gu's mom is absolutely thrilled. She gets the precious grandson she's been nagging Gu about for years. And as a bonus, she doesn't have to deal with a terrifying, demanding, knife-wielding daughter-in-law living in her house.
It is exactly what the girl promised, the perfect transaction. But the story isn't over. Because a few nights after the midnight delivery, we reach the grand, bloody finale.
The climax of the girl's true hidden mission. The reason she came to Jinling in the first place.
Gu is sitting in his room. It's late at night. The house is quiet.
Suddenly, the girl appears in his doorway. She walks in, and she's holding that exact same leather pouch she used to casually decapitate the fox demon months ago.
But this time, the pouch looks heavy. It's weighted down.
She actually smiles at Gu, a rare, genuine smile, and she announces, "My great task is done. I must leave from here."
Gibby's frantic. He is desperate. He asks her what she means, where she is going, why she is leaving when they finally have a child.
And in this moment, she finally unburdens herself. She explains exactly who she is, where she came from, and what she's been doing in the shadows all this time.
She slowly opens the heavy leather pouch. And inside, dripping with fresh blood, is the severed head of a human being.
The text goes out of its way to note that the hair and the beard are thickly matted with dark blood. Gu is absolutely, understandably horrified.
Put yourself in his position. He is looking at a freshly decapitated head in his living room for the second time in this story.
And this is where the puzzle pieces finally snap together. She reveals her tragic backstory. She tells Gu she is originally from Zhejiang, a province located quite a distance away from Jinling.
Her father was a Sima, which is a high-ranking military official, but her father was politically framed by a deeply powerful, corrupt enemy, the very man whose head is currently leaking blood onto Gu's floor.
This enemy completely destroyed her family, likely resulting in her father's execution and the total confiscation of their ancestral property.
She tells Gu that when the hammer fell, she grabbed her elderly deaf mother, carried her on her back, and fled the province. She changed her name, hid her noble identity, buried her lethal martial skills, and lived in squalor.
And then she drops the timeline on him. She says, "I have been doing this for 3 years."
3 years. Let's really slow down and highlight the staggering, almost incomprehensible psychological weight of that weight. She is an elite assassin. We have seen her capabilities.
She is fully capable of throwing a dagger like a bolt of lightning and taking off a demon's head in a fraction of a second.
She could have easily hunted down and killed her father's enemy on day one, but she didn't. She chose to live in abject poverty, starving, hiding, actively suppressing her burning need for righteous vengeance. Why?
Because of her suffocating sense of duty. She tells Gu she had 2 very specific reasons for delaying her revenge. First, her mother was still alive.
If she went on a high-profile assassination mission against a powerful official, she might be killed, or worse, she might bring the authorities crashing down on her helpless mother.
She literally had to wait for her mother to pass away naturally so she wouldn't leave her unprotected. And the second reason, the pregnancy.
Yes. She tells Gu, once my mother was gone, I had a lump of flesh dragging me down in my belly. She discovered she was pregnant with Gu's child, and she absolutely refused to let her own personal, lifelong mission of vengeance jeopardize the repayment of her moral debt to Gu's family.
She deliberately delayed her life's singular purpose to endure pregnancy and ensure Gu received his heir safely.
If I have to make a modern analogy to help wrap our heads around this, she is exactly like an elite, deep cover Black Ops sleeper agent who absolutely refuses to let her classified mission compromise her moral debts to innocent civilian bystanders.
Her entire timeline, her immense suffering, her starvation, it was all dictated by her unshakable sense of duty to others. She put her bloody vengeance on hold for a bowl of rice. It is an insane, awe-inspiring level of moral accounting.
It is the absolute embodiment of the classical Enxia, the knight-errant of Chinese literature. A Mengxia is a figure bound by a deeply personal, unshakable code of honor and reciprocity that completely supersedes the law of the land, personal comfort, and even natural human emotion.
She is the ultimate master of her own will.
She controlled her boiling anger for 3 years. She controlled her physical body to produce a healthy child. And only when the ledgers of her life were perfectly mathematically zeroed out did she finally unleash her violence upon her enemy.
And that profound realization brings us to the final moments of the narrative. Because now that her ledgers are balanced, her mother is buried, her debt is paid, and her enemy is dead. She is out of there.
But before she departs this world entirely, She offers Gu one final gift, a glimpse into the future, a prophecy.
Right. She looks at Gu, the man she slept with, the
Mm.
biological father of her child, the man who helped bury her mother, and she says very bluntly, "You have thin fortune and will not live long."
Ouch.
Just a brutal, honest assessment. Hey, thanks to the memories and the rice, you're going to die very soon. But she immediately follows it up with a promise. She says, "This son will bring immense glory to your family's gate."
She tells him to take good care of the kid, warns him to keep his voice down so he doesn't wake the old lady, and then she's gone.
The specific description of her departure is striking and deeply symbolic. The text says, "She flashed like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, she was no longer seen."
She doesn't just casually walk out the front door and stroll down the street. She literally vanishes into the night, emphasizing her supernatural, almost elemental nature.
She was not a normal human. She was a force of nature, a karmic storm that temporarily inhabited Gu's mundane world to restore balance to the universe. And now that the balance is struck, she has returned to the ether.
Gu is left standing there alone in his room, holding a bag with a head in it, looking like a block of wood. The text says he felt as though he had literally lost his soul.
And honestly, can you blame the guy? He was just a struggling freelance artist who painted landscapes to feed his mom. And in the span of roughly a year, he got a shape-shifting demon boy toy, a supernatural assassin surrogate, and had to clean up 2 severed heads from his property.
He is fundamentally, permanently broken by the sheer magnitude of the experience.
And, as is typical with figures of immense power, her prophecy comes entirely, literally true.
Yeah, the epilogue wraps up the narrative mechanics very neatly. Gu does indeed pass away just 3 years later, so he really did have remarkably thin fortune.
But the son, the little boy with the broad forehead, grows up. And he doesn't just do well, he thrives. He achieves the highly prestigious rank of Jinshi, which is an advanced scholar who has passed the grueling imperial examinations at the incredibly young age of 18.
That makes him a prodigy. And most importantly, fulfilling the ultimate requirement of filial piety, he takes care of Gu's mother, his grandmother, with wealth and honor until the very end of her days.
When you look back at it, the girl's payment was perfectly, flawlessly calibrated. She didn't just casually give them a child. She gave them the generational prodigy who permanently secured the family's wealth, elevated their social status, and guaranteed premium elder care for a generation.
She identified every single one of Gu's systemic problems, and she solved them all with one calculated act.
She was the ultimate supernatural fixer. She came in, cleaned up the mess, balanced the books, and vanished. It's an incredible story. But here's where things get really, really weird for a modern reader.
Oh, the author's note.
Because the author of this story, the famous writer Pu Songling, steps in at the very end of the manuscript to offer his personal commentary. Usually, classical tales like this end with a neat, predictable moral. Something like, always be kind to your neighbors, or filial piety is highly rewarded by the heavens.
But that is absolutely not what the author takes away from this epic saga.
No, the author's concluding remark is highly unusual and is almost jarring in its bizarre specificity and its underlying cynicism about domestic life.
The author states, and I'm translating and paraphrasing slightly for modern ears, but the core meaning of the text is undeniably clear. He says that a man absolutely must have a gallant, chivalrous woman inside his house before he can safely afford to keep a male lover.
Otherwise, he warns, while the man is busy loving his boy toy, the boy toy will inevitably prey upon the vulnerable women of the house.
It is a wild metaphor. The author essentially says, you love your handsome young boar, but he loves your sows. That is the exact dynamic he is warning against.
What on earth? Let's synthesize this because it feels like whiplash. How does the author take this epic, sweeping tale of a super assassin's 3-year agonizing quest for righteous vengeance, her insane, unparalleled psychological discipline, her flawless moral ledger, and somehow compress all of that into a bizarre warning about household management and keeping your bisexual affairs rigorously in check?
It's completely chaotic.
It really is.
It is deeply chaotic on the surface, but if we unpack the subtext, it reveals a massive amount about the cultural anxieties of the Ming and Qing eras. The author is taking this wild supernatural tale and using it as a Trojan horse to make a surprisingly domestic conservative point about protecting the inner sanctum of the family unit.
The male lover, or the fox demon in this context, is symbolic.
Exactly. He represents external, unregulated desire, chaotic, destructive forces that are willingly brought into the safe sphere of the home by the patriarch's sheer lack of discipline. Gu lacked internal discipline. He brought a literal shim-shifting monster into his house simply because he couldn't control his own lonely impulses.
Ah, I see the connection now. Gu is fundamentally weak. He left the door open and let the chaos waltz right in.
Exactly. The author is making a profound argument about the yin and yang of household dynamics. He is saying that if a man, the theoretical head of the household, is going to be weak, if he is going to indulge in unregulated, chaotic desires that invite danger, he absolutely must have a stabilizing, fiercely disciplined counterforce to survive.
That force is represented by the chivalrous woman.
Her role is to protect the vulnerable members of the household, like the aging mother or the future children, from the patriarch's own foolishness. The assassin girl acts as the ultimate lethal immune system for Gu's household. She recognizes the infection, the demon youth, and she ruthlessly eliminates it before it can destroy the family structure from the inside out.
So the author is essentially looking at the reader and saying, listen, if you're going to be an idiot and bring highly toxic, unregulated people into your life, you better make absolutely sure your wife is a literal ninja who can chop their heads off when things go south.